Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome into another episode of Capitol View, a webcast brought to you by the Daily Journal and djournal.com. Coming to you here every Monday around 2 o'clock. A little bit of a late start today. Had some computer issues, but it happens. I'm Brad Locke, your host, along with Bobby Harrison, joining us from Jackson. He's our Capitol Bureau Chief. And Bobby, how's it going? I'm a little jealous. You got to see Mac McAnally speak and perform in person last week, didn't you?
I did at the MEC, Mississippi Economic Council annual meeting. He was the not only the performer, but he was also the keynote speaker, if you will. It was a little different type of keynote speech. It was a question and answer, sort of a conversation with Scott Waller, who is the second in command at MEC, soon to be number one in command with the retirement of Blake Wilson as president of the organization. But Belmont resident has done well for himself as a musician and songwriter. He handled that situation real well.
Yeah, good stuff there, Bobby. Well, we got a few things to talk about today. A couple of things in particular. Of course, last week, since the last time we came to you, Governor Bryant has announced a date for the start of the special legislative session they're going to have to try to deal with a few budgets, namely the Department of Transportation and the Attorney General's office, and also the state aid road program. But some other things, Bobby, could slip into the agenda there. And we've mentioned maybe something about the lottery. And I know Bill Stone, a Democrat from Holly Springs, would like to see some kind of bond bills in there as well, Bobby. So, but we don't have the agenda set yet, do we? It's kind of a little bit of a guessing game beyond the budgets.
Yeah, the governor, it's kind of unusual what Governor Bryant did. He announced last week that the special session would be on June 5th, which is, of course, still several weeks away. But he didn't say what was going to be in the special session. Only the governor can set the agenda for the special session under our Constitution. So there's a sort of kind of a guessing game going on right now. As you mentioned, some people want to see the lottery included. Other people, Bill Stone, who is the Senate Democratic leader, minority leader, has proposed, taking up a bond bill to finance long-term construction projects such as on university campuses and community college campuses. That bill died during the regular session. There's generally a bond bill each session to finance those types of long-term construction projects. So he wants to see that. The Bill Stone and other Democrats hope the governor will allow them to correct a bill he vetoed that would kind of ease some of the roadblocks to inmates when they got out of jail to return to society. The governor vetoed that bill because of essentially what was a typographical error, and so there's some hope by some that he'll put that bill in the special session to correct that mistake. But we just won't know, and we could go into the special session not knowing everything. We could go into special session just with those three budget bills you talked about on the agenda. Then as the session proceeded, he could add other issues to it. That's not uncommon. So we may not know until we're in the midst of the special session what exactly all the issues that will be discussed by the legislature will be.
As we mentioned before, the new fiscal year starts July 1st. They need to have all these budgets in place by then, Bobby. Right. And, you talked, I think, last week about, how long a special session can take. It can vary greatly. It could be a day or two. It could be several weeks. But they've only got about less than a 4-week window to work with. So you feel like that it shouldn't really take terribly long, should it?
Well, the consensus is that on those three budget bills, they won't take long. And matter of fact, most people believe they could be done in a day. But, the other issues that I discussed, the lottery, the bond bill, even rewriting the education funding formula as has been proposed, those are much more controversial and complex issues that could take a lot longer if the governor chooses to include those in the special session.
True. So again, that starts on June the 5th, and I guess between now and then, maybe they'll release some kind of agenda about exactly what they're going to try to cover and get done. But we'll just have to wait and see. Let's talk about a story you had here a little more recently, Bobby. Sunday's paper about the state health department, and of course has been well documented. They're facing budget cuts like a lot of agencies, and they're having to cut some programs and maybe cut some jobs. Bobby, they released a video the other day that was aimed at the state employees, I guess. Mary Courier, she's the state health officer, and kind of outlined, I guess, kind of the plan here.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening, Brad? Of course, the legislative session ended, regular session ended back in late March, and there was a significant budget cut that all agencies came out of that session knowing they would have to deal with. And, the health department is just one of those agencies. Like during the 2016 session, the agency I think got $36 million in state funds. During the 2017 session, they got 24.5, 24.6, somewhere along that line. So they're having to make some substantial cuts and reorganization. And one thing, I guess, and this video, it was directed solely to their 1,800 employees. We just happened to see it through somebody sent it to us. They're making some pretty significant changes. Ever since I can remember, there's been 9 public health districts across the state. One based in Tupelo covers a substantial portion of northeast Mississippi, and those 9 districts are going to be consolidated into 3: a southern, central, and northern district. I'm not sure where those offices are going to be located. And of course, when they close these 9 offices, people are going to lose their jobs, and then there's other issues that's going to come up. She said, matter of factly, the people would lose their jobs in this reorganization. She just doesn't know how many at this point in time. And this is the issue that it's kind of filtering out now. There's been stories coming out about mental health, about cuts and reduction of employees that agency is going to have to deal with. I think we had a story last week, Brad, about schools up in Corinth or Alcorn County having to lay off employees,
Yep.
And this is just kind of a result of the budget cuts that the legislature made during the 2017 session. And of course, those cuts were made primarily because of revenue collections are not meeting the projections, and
right.
So they're that's the result of that activity.
The Department of Health was budgeted $36 million in the 2016 session, and because of which was already a cut from previous, Bobby, and then you had more cuts, like you said. So it's really only 31 million is what they're getting this year. So I mean, it's one of those things. I guess it's just inevitable, Bobby. It stinks that you have to cut jobs, but what other solution is there?
Yeah, and that's some Republicans who are in charge would argue that was their goal, to trim government and to eliminate some programs and positions, and so we just have to see how that works out. When you're talking about eliminating jobs, it impacts some family, but that also enough jobs eliminated, that's going to have an impact on the economy of the state too. So
yeah,
and then the flip side of that, which is just as important, is more important. When you eliminate those jobs, you're eliminating programs, and somebody's being served by those programs. When you go from when you reduce the number of public health nurses, which will occur during this reorganization, there's going to be fewer services provided to the citizens of Mississippi who need them. So of course, as we all know, Mississippi is already the least healthy state in the nation. So all those things add up. Some people say we need to be doing more in the area of public health and in education, but what we're going to be doing is less. And I guess the hope by the leadership is it can be done more efficiently.
Yeah.
And get more bang for the buck. We'll see how that works out in the long run.
Yeah, and I saw something, an AP story we had over the weekend as well, talking about the Department of Mental Health, and they told the story of a young man who was been on this waiting list for Whitfield for a long time. It's a lengthy waiting list, and they thought they had something. I mean, they thought that they finally had him in. They told him, yeah, okay, we got him in now, and now all this kind of stuff is happening, and he's back on the waiting list. So I mean, it's it's a far-reaching impact. It came with this whole thing, Bobby.
Yeah, it's far-reaching, and the people, there's always been that concern with the Department of Mental Health that there's not enough facilities and people who are who are, found to be in need of mental health services by the courts, they often have to spend time in a jail before there's a space in a mental health facility to get that person some help. And that just, the common sense is, the cuts just exacerbates that problem. So so I mean, there's a lot of issues that's going to affect a lot of Mississippians.
Now, I believe, Bobby, is that 90% of the health department's funding comes from federal money. And so, I mean, what kind of perspective does that give us on everything? I mean, still, they're losing a lot of money, nevertheless.
Yeah. But I mean, but that state money, as Dr. Curry pointed out in the video, is important because, the Department of Health does a lot of different things. And, two things that they do that, people may not realize that could be impacted by these cuts is, the restaurants inspections. I know we all eat out on occasion, and we all eat out expecting that restaurant to have been inspected and pass certain standards and be clean and everything. So we want the Department of Health to be able to do that job. And they also inspect wastewater and water treatment facilities. And even if you put put a facility, you put a system in your house, they inspect that. So we don't want wastewater to be spewing out in neighborhoods and stuff. So those are important regulatory functions that are done with state funds that that we depend on the Department of Health to do to make sure that we're all safe, eating good food and having clean water and everything.
All right. Well, you can read Bobby's stories every day in the Daily Journal and also at djournal.com. Follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyHarrison9. That's it for today. We're out of time. But, Bobby, thanks again, as always, for your insight. And, maybe we'll hear something more on the special session agenda in the near future. Bobby will have his ear to the ground, as always. And thank you all for tuning in. Again, we come to you every Monday about 2 p.m., give or take. But if you miss it live or want to watch it again, just catch the replay right here at djournal.com. So we'll be back next week. Until then, for Bobby Harrison, I'm Brad Locke. You'll have a good one.